and welcome back to another Secret Entourage Academy episode. You may recognize this guy. It's been over a year now that we've last spoken to Aaron Singerman, who formerly was the CEO of Blackstone Labs. And at the time we did our last interview, he had grown Blackstone and had done some incredible things in the supplement business. But today, it's been over a year since we've last talked to Aaron, and he's back on with me to talk about a lot of incredible things that have happened through the year, but also to talk a little bit about how the entrepreneur in you never really changes, no matter what company you're out there growing. So welcome back to the show, brother. I appreciate you being on.
Thank you.
So what do I officially call you now? CEO of Redcon Wine, founder of Redcon Wine?
Yeah, CEO, founder of Redcon Wine. Yeah, it's pretty crazy, A lot has changed in a year, and I have to thank you because over the period of last year or so, I've had tons of people email me from Secret Entourage, come up at expos. I'm always amazed that our interview touched so many people or made a difference for so many people that on a regular basis we were at the Arnold Classic and we had a big booth for Redcon. And I must have had a dozen people come up and say, I saw you from Secret Entourage, I wanted to meet you. And it wasn't about the supplements, it was literally about the interview and about entrepreneurship. So
about the inspiration.
Yeah, about the inspiration, because I felt like a lot of people identified with my story of addiction and problems that they may have had and overcoming. So. Well,
I think a lot of people not only related to that, but that's why it was so hard when, the industry kind of heard that you were leaving Blackstone.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? How's that possible? I was just there not too long ago and they're doing great.
We went to lunch.
Yeah, I was like, they're doing great. What? Yeah. So I know there's a lot of things that obviously that happen, and I really want to talk about Redcon because I find it incredible that you've been able to now do ultimately what you had done with Blackstone in 3 years, in the first 3 years anyways, in just 9 short months.
Yeah.
And so I want to talk about that, but before we do that, let's just kind of briefly talk about what really happened at Blackstone, meaning you're owning a company, how do you get out of your own company and give it to someone else? That's something you only hear in movies, and you're like, oh, this guy got booted out by a board of director or whatever. So what happened?
It really was to me even like a movie, we had just we completed 2000. We were in that phase of completing 2016, which we actually won the 27th fastest growing company in the country with the Inc. 500. So we were number 27 and number 2 in health. So the company was going very, very well. Blackstone was on the rise, was in a stage of rapid growth. I would have expected it to double again the following year. And usually problems in a partnership, in a business, don't occur when you're doing good.
Right.
Like you said, you come in, you see everything, the employees going with orders constantly, everything was going great, and the numbers were continuing to rise. So how does it go from that to where it was, where we had a huge partnership dispute and everything? And the truth of the matter is that I'll tell the people out there watching, and you already know, that it's difficult to work with people. And over a period of time with success, people change. Things happen in people's lives. And for me and my partner in Blackstone, we certainly grew apart over the 3 years where his life and my life, I have children now, I'm focusing on different stuff. He was still, for a while, a single life, and then married, and then now not married, and he's had a lot of changes in his life. So our opinions on stuff, while they were once like this, started to veer off. And I'm sure that happens to a lot of people. The difference is that we were not able to get back together. We were always having these differences. And one day we got into an argument over something silly, over firing an employee who I thought should have been fired, and he agreed, and I fired the guy. And then the next day the guy called and cried, and then he said, I want to bring him back. And for anybody out here who owns a business, once you fire somebody, and it's
the worst thing, you never want to bring them back.
You can't, because now if there was a reason that they weren't good before, good enough that you have to let them go, then once you fire somebody, now they're gonna have resentments. They're gonna have, and it's human nature. Even if they were in the wrong, nobody ever looks at themselves and thinks I was in the wrong. They always, you're the hero of your own story, no matter what. You did nothing wrong. These bad, mean boss, And so when he wanted to bring him back, we got in a fight over something stupid, and it ended up basically going into this place where we had a huge partnership dispute. And one day I went into the office with the intentions of buying out our silent partner, and instead I was told that I had been voted out by PJ, who was running the company with me, and the silent partner, and literally they told me, get your shit and get the fuck out of there. And it was one of those feelings where your stomach drops, because I wasn't expecting that at all.
Right.
I had no expectation that was a possibility. And my first impulse was to take the computer screen and throw it at them, throw it at the wall. And I was like, that was the first impulse. And I stopped myself and I said, okay, this is a situation where I should just leave and, figure out what to do and call the lawyer, right? And take a moment to reflect and plan before I act emotionally. And that's something I've always been good at in business and in life, and sometimes I get criticized by my wife about being too cold and showing not as much emotion. But in business, I think I'm really good at pulling my emotion out of it, taking a step back, at least for a minute, and considering what to do. So I walked outside to contemplate, where to head next, and the first thing I did was call a lawyer, and basically that became a chain of events, which for people out there that I'm sure most people haven't had a business dispute like this, you can't get voted out of your company.
That's what I was going to say. It seems like impossible when you built a real legitimate company and you own such a majority share. How do you, poof, get out of here? It's not that easy, right?
It's not that easy at all, actually. And so because we both had voting rights, so I had half the voting rights and the other partner had half, right? We had a silent partner who had no voting rights and owned a small minority percentage of the company, but those two could not combine together to vote me out.
Right, because that's not how that works.
Yeah, it's if me and you, it's like a marriage basically.
Right.
And that's the thing that you can't say, oh, you cheated on me, you're out. Get your shit and get out. It doesn't work like that.
There's a law around it and whatever.
Some people wish it works like that, but it doesn't work like that. And the business is the same way. And so that's what the lawyer told me, and I said, so what do I do? And he said, go back to the office tomorrow, pretend nothing happened. And that's what I did. There was a lot of drama, and we went back there. I had a police escort just in case to make sure there was nothing crazy happened. And that, me going back, basically got the ball rolling for a discussion about how we could separate. And so what ended up happening was I ended up keeping my ownership, my 35% ownership of the company, but in exchange for giving away my voting rights so that I no longer had any ability to manage the company or make any decisions or have the right to say if a product is good or bad or hire or fire or anything. Mm-hmm. The only ability that I did have was the ability to see the inventory, look at the books, check the bank account.
Which is like an investor.
Yeah, I'm an investor.
Yeah, exactly.
It'd be like I own shares of Apple.
Right, exactly.
Apple doesn't ask me what to do,
right.
And I can't be mad at Apple if they make a bad decision, but I could be mad that I can't do anything
right,
about it. Right? So that's what I was with Blackstone. In exchange for those rights, I got the ownership in other companies that we owned together. So I got Kai Green, who's a famous bodybuilder. We owned a company with him. And I got PJ's ownership in that. And then Dana Lynn Bailey and Rob Bailey was another famous business fitness couple. We owned a company called Run Everything with them as partners. And I got his partnership, his ownership in those. So we essentially traded the ownership in those businesses in exchange for the rights to be able to run Blackstone the way that he wanted. And,
so he ultimately bought his CEO role.
Yes, he bought it.
That's right. He bought it.
It was very important. It was very important to him to run it and to have me out, and and he bought it. He traded it. He traded his ownership for that, because the truth of the matter is, to buy me out, as good as the company was doing, he didn't have the funds. Nobody really had the funds to give.
That's what I was going to ask you next, because it seems like when you have a small company and you have no money, obviously, meaning each person's making a salary off the company and living off of that money.
Sure.
You're not putting millions and millions away at a time,
right.
So it's not like you suddenly are like, here's $8 million, go away, and we'll continue.
No.
So when you have, but Blackstone wasn't a small company, it wasn't like a small mom and pop, 100K a year company, so how do you, how does that work? Because if you say someone comes in and now buys their CEO role, well, how do you know they're not just going to run it to the ground? And you're going to lose all that that equity, right?
That's a big fear. And the other option for me would to take it to court and get in front of a judge and fight for the right to run the business. And the truth of the matter is that I made a calculated decision that this deal would work out for me. I had the confidence that the company would keep running at least for a while, and I thought I basically thought it was a good trade. I thought it was a good trade. What would have been better, what would have been fantastic, is if there was money to just buy me out and have me be
right. So you get something for all the time you put in.
Yeah, for all the time, but it just wasn't possible. There was no solution like that looming. So instead of having the drama continue, because it was definitely hurting Blackstone, it was hurting me and my family. It was a very dramatic time in my life. So to get it over with, this was the solution. And I also was able to compete immediately, directly against the company, which is part of the separation agreement. Very important, obviously, because this is what I know. So I know nutritional supplement companies, and I think that I'm the best. So I don't want to have that right taken away from me. Because in a lot of agreements like this, they would say you have a non-compete. You can do the business you're
right. Why would you want to go down the street and start something to compete with the same customer?
Right. And so if I were to say I sell Redcon tomorrow to a big VC firm or whatever, they're going to almost 100% certainly say, you can't compete against us for a period of time, or maybe forever, I don't know. Usually 5 years.
They don't want you taking your customers, your resources, and the people you know and the things you know.
Yeah. But that was part of the deal as well. So that kind of led us to the next phase.
Very, very cool. So, before we move on past this section, I know many people struggle with partnerships in general in their business. They have partners and they don't know how to deal with, maybe they're starting to see signs that one person's lazy, one person has a different agenda, and these things happen early on in business. Do you have any tips for people who perhaps are early in their partnership? And what signs should they look out for that maybe are going to lead to a separation, that they should maybe address instead of say, okay, whatever, we'll get over this because we're having some sales and we're going to make some money. Because it only gets worse from my experience, not better. So what were some of these signs that you should have seen coming that you didn't necessarily act on right away?
Well, I'll give you two, before I answer that, I'll give you 2 rules that I would probably follow. Number one, I don't know if I would partner with family, because you could potentially lose your family, when there's problems. If you have a best friend, it may seem a great idea to have a best friend as your partner. My experience is that you could lose your best friend. So it's something, I'm not saying you should never partner with a family member or a friend, but be circumspect. Take a good look at it. Is this something that could potentially fall apart? Is this person that I'm a family member or a friend, somebody who is agreeable, who's easily, depending on their personality and your personality. And the other big factor I would say with choosing a partner or whatever is that people are going to get more difficult. And so if there's a tendency for the person that could be your partner, if you already notice that they're hard-headed, and maybe you're hard-headed, or you're both A-type personalities, be aware of that beforehand, because there's a temptation to get somebody that you think, we're very similar, but if you don't know your roles in the company, if you don't have so let's say me and PJ, for example, are both pretty A-type personalities. And we were doing a lot of the same things together. Maybe if way back years ago, we just said, this is yours and this is mine. You don't do anything with mine and I won't do anything with yours. And then maybe you could have continued. But unfortunately for me anyway, we were kind of crossing over each other. So I think it's important to say, PJ, you're going to do the marketing and the digital marketing. I'm going to handle the finances and the operations. You're going to handle it, because then at least you have set a role in advance instead of defined roles. But the other thing that I would say is that.
But don't those lines get blurred with money?
Yeah, you have to try. You have to try not to, because that's the thing. Is that
because it seems like if money's coming or not coming, it creates this need to kind of be like, well, what are you doing? Let me work on that too, because obviously we're not making enough money.
There's always going to be that's like a rule that you should set in place and be cognizant of throughout the whole process, and remind each other. So like if you start saying, I don't really like the color red on if I tell you I don't like the color red on our Facebook ads, I think it should be like, no. I'm the marketing guy. Remember, we had agreed to this, and try to stay in your lanes. But you're right. There's no perfect thing. So that would be, in terms of my advice, is try not to have a partner.
Right.
That's right. That's the truth. I mean, one thing that people need money. You can get an investor if you're doing well. You've got the numbers to prove it. There's certainly money out there available to you that doesn't include somebody's opinion, right? So if I were going to take on a partner, the 2 ways I would either take them on is, number one, as a silent partner that has no right to say anything, which could still cause a problem.
Right, at some point.
It still could. If you're not doing good, it could be like,
it could backfire,
right? That would be one way, is somebody who doesn't have any opinion. Or if you're going to have a partner and take them on, make sure that this guy or girl knows the plan, is aware of what's going on, and sticks with the plan. But there's always going to be, obviously, the ideal thing is no partner. I mean, that would be the idea. For me personally, I move very fast in business, and I don't want to. I've had problems slowing myself down to ask people. And so a lot of times it's my fault. I've had problems, done stuff where I know it's the right thing, I do it, I react, and I react quickly, and then somebody who I'm working with says, whoa, you didn't even ask me.
Right.
And it's not something out of disrespect, it's just like, it's part of who I am. And now if I were going to take on a partner, I would let them know in advance, I would be honest and forthright and say, hey, this is who I am. I move fast. You might not get a say in everything,
Well, I feel so many people find partners based on skills, and they're like, I need a coder, I need this, I need that.
Which is good. That's
but they never pay attention to personality types, which I think are very important, because if you have even a coder that's very A-type, and very ballsy in his approach, will clash at some point, with someone who's a personality type as a CEO who's like, this 100%. Is where coding needs to go, and is like, no, I don't want to do that.
Yeah, that's definitely something to consider. One thing I'll say that I tell people is that if I were going to get another partner, I would want a value-added partner. So I would want somebody who can do something that I can't do, or bring something to the table. So somebody who has money that I don't have, or somebody who has skills that I don't have, or has the ability, like for example with me, I'm not particularly good with accounting. I'm not an operations expert. If I were to bring somebody in, it would be great if I brought somebody in who's fantastic at that and has tremendous experience, because then they're a value-added partner. They're bringing something to the table that I don't have.
And it's also not something you're interested in going and learning every day, right? Like, it's not like your expertise or your talent.
And I know, and I think a lot of people out there know, if they're honest with themselves, what they're good at and what they're not good at, right? The truth is, I'm not good at everything. I'm probably not good at most things. But I'm really, really good at some things. And I think that's really, honestly, everybody has strengths and weaknesses, and if you're honest with yourself and you can identify them, then maybe, if you're lucky, you can find a partner that has what you're missing.
Well, I mean, I know you're good at something, and that's why we're here having this conversation. Right. Let's talk a little bit about what you're really good at. And I think one of the interesting points in entrepreneurship is I'm a big believer that when you embrace the idea that the money is never a byproduct of your business, but a byproduct of yourself, then I think you lose, we were talking about this earlier in the kitchen, about the idea that you lose this fear of like making money, and it becomes more about the focus on the company growth and everything, because you understand the money is the byproduct of your effort. Right. And it's incredible for me how you were able to kind of leave something behind and start something very similar, in a similar field, doing something similar, with its own twist now, and you're able to scale it so much faster.
Yes.
Having the exact knowledge that you had, you did the trial and error thing for 3 years, and now in just a little bit over a year, you've completely grown Redcon to, like, again, being not a small company.
Right.
So let's talk a little bit about that transition. And one of the things I admired, and one of the reasons I really wanted to bring you back on the show, was because I really enjoyed the speed in which you did that. Like, it wasn't 5 years later. It wasn't like you disappeared off the earth for 3 years, came back, with a cape and and a Dark Knight costume, and we're doing this, right? It was very like systematic, where it's like all this drama, stop, immediate start, and then again, like almost like overshadowing Blackstone now, and like everybody's hearing about Redcon, and kind of the other side's gone dark. So tell me a little bit about like what went through your head when you started Redcon. Like, what was the first thing that happened? Because you committed to a big building. I remember that. I walked in. I was like, this is empty. I hope he makes it. So tell me a little bit about that moment. Like, what goes through your head that you say, I'm gonna make it, and it doesn't even matter what?
So after everything happened with Blackstone, and we had separated, it had been about 2 or 3 days, and we start the process, the process of contracts and lawyers and figuring out the solution to this. And I was in a hotel room in Dallas, I think at the Europa or something like that, at a show. And it had already been a few days once we were even ready. When we launched the clothing, we did $60,000 in 2 weeks in clothing. And I knew, like, oh, this is going to be good, because clothing is like, it's the t-shirts that say Redcon. So why are all these people interested? So it gave me a good feeling. But I have to tell you, even with all this confidence we're talking about, the day we flipped the site on and sold nutritional supplements, I was nervous. Because it was like 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock at night, and we all went to the office. The team, we had probably 10 or 11 people at that time. And we flipped, we call it flip the switch, but really it was just press on, you know. So we were all there, and I had a few moments, I always remember this, where I was like, oh fuck, this is not gonna work. Like, are people really gonna buy? You know, like, is this gonna be, because I did all this build up, but like, are they gonna trust the supplements? You know, is this going to really work? And we turned it on, and we did like 100 sales in the first few minutes. And it was like the best feeling, because I was like, dude, I was right, I'm okay, you know, it's gonna be good. And we got so many orders so fast that people were waiting. They were waiting for the site to turn live to start buying. It reminded me of, you know, like how I've done in the past when the iPhone comes. Like back years ago, I'd stay up till midnight or 3 in the morning. I want to buy it. And people did that, and I was like, damn.
And they did it for your company.
They did it for me,
for someone as big as Apple.
Yeah, for sure. And realistically, you know, of course, we had Dallas who helped, and we had a lot of other great people that were involved in the team. But realistically, it felt like this was me. You know what I mean? The Redcon one feels like me, because Blackstone in the past felt like me and PJ or other partners. You know, I felt like, and he was always the front man. So like, he was the one that was talking to the people. He was the star, right? And this time there is really no star. It was either me or Dallas or really nobody. It was the brand, and that is the coolest thing ever. So when I go to shows, it's surprising how few people have any idea what Blackstone was. And the memory of people is just so short, or it's just all new consumers. Because I don't, like when you asked about who is the crowd, I think it's almost entirely a new crowd. Because Blackstone is a hardcore bodybuilding supplement line. And the products, the type of products that sold very well for Blackstone almost don't sell at all for me. We even discontinued some of them because they just don't sell. They're worst sellers, even though they're best sellers. And I think that our brand is for people who want to perform better in whatever they're doing, and it's a much broader base. So our age group is 18 to 35 mostly, but we have a much larger group. So like Blackstone is like more 18 to 24. And we're more 24 to 35. And then we have a lot of people that are all the way up to 45, whereas Blackstone kind of dies off. We also have almost 30% women. Blackstone has 6 or 7% women.
So it is more of a generic, I mean, like more people can use it type of product.
100%. And even Blackstone's like that too. But for Redcon, the actual consumer are people that don't necessarily follow bodybuilding or even want huge muscles. They want to perform better, which is exactly what I wanted, because I don't want, so my goal for Redcon is actually the same goal we had way back when Blackstone is. I want to do, the first huge goal is to do over 100 million a year in revenue. And I feel like Blackstone, no matter how good we would have done, that would have been a very lofty goal, because it's such a niche of an already small niche. So even if you're the best, I think Blackstone was the best. At one point, I don't know where we are now, but I think it was the best in the world of that niche. And it still was anywhere near that $100 million mark. So with Redcon, I'm confident that I'll finally hit the goal.
So with Redcon, you're looking ahead and you're like, the possibilities there. Before you were like, that's kind of blurry. Like, I'm not sure how we're gonna figure something out to try to get there.
Right. Well, all the big channels. So brick and mortar, the actual mom and pop stores have always been strong, and those relationships that I had with those people catapulted some of Redcon fast. So all of the websites and all of the smaller mom and pops and stuff were friends or had a relationship with me or knew me personally or have done business with me. So all of those people were willing and happy to carry Redcon. To get to the next level, to get to $100 million, you need to be in food, drug, mass. You need to be in big box stores. You need to be in, some of like the Sam's Clubs. You need to be in Dick's Sporting Goods. You also need military, which as much as they love Blackstone, they didn't want it in the military. You need GNC. You need Vitamin Shoppe.
Well, it's funny you bring these up, but when we first talked in the first interview, I kind of brought up the idea of distribution. Yes. Like, and I said, why are you guys not everywhere? Like in every store. Right. And I've had this conversation with other people in your industry, and the argument is always, well, the margins are not there. And, they take everything and so on and so forth. But you would think the volume's there if the margins are not there. So the question is, like, at what point does a supplement company look to that external distribution as a good thing and not a danger thing where it's like, oh, if they don't sell, I'm stuck with all this and it's not working.
So this is the point of the difference between these two is distribution. Like Europa, Eric Hillman is my good friend. He's the CEO of Europa, fantastic guy. The actual distribution that he does to the mom and pop stores, I don't want. Reason being is because I have in-house, I have 5 in-house salesmen. So I don't want, those guys can cover everybody. If they're working hard and have the right people, they can cover the 1,500 brick and mortar mom and pop. And I don't want them to compete with Europa reps. It doesn't make sense for me to do it. I have the people and they're dedicated for me. Europa is selling hundreds, maybe not 1,000 brands. Right. So like if you're selling 1,000 brands, why are you're not going to mention me? Right. Or maybe you do in passing if they really like me, but they're not going to be like, hey, what do I got to do to get you to pick up record? They're going to be like, what do I have to do to get you to pick something up in the catalog, the phone book I got you, you know? But so I'm not a believer in that necessarily. I mean, like I said, I got a meeting with Eric coming up, so you never know. I could be wrong. Maybe he's going to offer me a deal I can't refuse. But GNC is a different story. So GNC has 4,500 locations. They are not, as a brand, they're not doing particularly good. They need new, young, cool stuff. Mm-hmm. They need it. Vitamin Shoppe is the exact same way. They have 600 locations, smaller, but they're a great partner, and that would be more exposure for sure. Mm-hmm. And the margins, by the way, are not that bad for either one of them. GNC is a little tougher. Vitamin Shoppe is a little less tough in terms of what they're going to do, but it's still very profitable, both of them. The problem with a lot of these is they want you to do in-house marketing and give promotions, and that's where it can eat away your margin. So if, let's say you do 45% off a wholesale for Vitamin Shoppe, that's still great. I still make great money, mm-hmm. you know. But when they say, hey, do you want to do this catalog? It's going to be a $5,000 credit memo. Like, yeah, let's do the catalog. Do you want to do this in-store pop-up? How much is that? Oh, it's going to be $6,000 a month. You want to do this 20% off the whole line to get it moving? Oh, now you're going to give this. And so before you know it, you're like, wait, where'd all the money go? You know, and it's happened to me before where I've seen that.
So their margin stays, but yours kind of disappears.
They just dissipate it, and then it'll help move more product. They say, you know, but you have to be careful, because if they do like Europa, what they do is they'll be like, let's do a 3-in-1, where you sell 3 and they get 1 for free, and that can really kill you, because it sounds like, you know, well, so you're going to be bringing in an extra $50,000 a month, but now you're giving away 1 for every 3. You know, it starts to get nerd. You just don't realize. I don't think that people realize what they're doing when they do it. But you don't have to do any of that stuff. It's the option of the brand.
And it's hard to do the math, right? Because you're thinking in your head, and you're like, well, because they're telling you you're going to move so many units, right. And you're like, oh, I'm excited to do
right.
20 million in sales, and
right.
That's not how that works.
No, and I think that it's tough, especially like it was tough for me when we had Prime Nutrition. We did some distribution, and it's tough because I am a person who's focused on goals and big numbers, and sometimes it's hard to think like, wait, the bottom line is going to be, you know, so much less, where that can play a big role, because there's a cost of doing business. And at the end of the day, if you're giving away, you know, 20 points in credit memos, and you've offered them, you know, 45 off, all of a sudden now you're like, wait, so I'm making $10 for every $50 I would have made, so $40 of my dollars going back to them, and it's a losing proposition. Now, some people will take the thought that this is all marketing, right? Mm-hmm. Because you're getting all the product out to all these new people.
Right, and all these people are going to want to buy more.
And maybe they'll come back to the website, or maybe they're going to buy it from a different place, or maybe, you know, maybe they're going to tell their friends, and they're going to pick up a new customer. And there's some relevancy to that. But so Vitamin Shoppe and bodybuilding are both good. The food, drug, mass stuff, they want a lot off. But now if you're in Costco or Dick's or whatever, you're talking about very big numbers. Right. And they're not competing against, the person who goes to Dick's Sporting Goods and buys a pre-workout is not going anywhere else.
Right, they're not going to GNC.
No. My dad used to go to Dick's. I don't know anybody else. I've never been there. Right, I'm not buying from there.
Are they closing?
I don't know. I'm using them I'm using them as a tool. For all I know, they're out of business now.
Half of this business.
Well, that's the thing, and that's the truth too, is that brick and mortar in general.
Retail is
going down, and that's why the thing about it is that in our industry we have yet to see a sports supplement company that has went totally direct and get to the place that I want to be. Although I'm sure it's going to happen. I know there's some people like with Beachbody and stuff.
But there's also changing times, right?
It is.
Before, you know, that wasn't as dominant.
Yeah.
You know, the GNC was where you went to get stuff, right?
Crazy, yeah, crazy.
And now it's not the only place you go. So now the audience is like spread 3 ways. You know,
you have to be flexible for sure. I mean, I like the direct-to-consumer personally. I like that model the best. But if you're going to, it just depends on what your goals are. You know what I mean? So somebody could start a direct-to-consumer supplement company, do $5 million in sales in net 3. And somebody may be absolutely ecstatic to do that. And that may be their whole goal. And there's nothing wrong with that. But that's not where I'm trying to get.
And let me ask you about this last thing about distribution. Is a lot of people know that Amazon is obviously one of the reasons why 90% of retailers are going out of business. You know, it's like they're just overnight just put everybody, you know, just like have a good day. How does that play into your business? Meaning, like, how do you leverage something like Amazon, knowing that that's a huge shopper base, right? Like, is there a way to kind of take advantage of that, looking ahead rather than saying, "Oh, I'll wait till they die and then, you know, we'll hop over there instead"?
Well, we're on Amazon now, and we sell on Amazon. We have an exclusive distribution partner on Amazon. We also have another bunch of people that really are not even allowed to sell on Amazon that are selling on Amazon our products. So we're in the process of doing something called gating it, where it's like a legal process. You hire a lawyer, they reach out to Amazon and say, these people do not have the ability to use your trademark. And they will then kick them all off, and it'll just be you. And then the goal, for me anyway, I would prefer, even though we don't have it now, just to have a relationship directly with Amazon where they can buy, because they don't need a lot of margin. They can take 35% off, and they'll be fantastic, thrilled, right? Because they don't need that much. And then let them distribute it through Amazon. But we do a lot now. The thing that I focus on isn't the amount of sales on Amazon or pumping up Amazon. It's that we keep the price integrity on Amazon. That's the real problem. And that's why a lot of supplement companies have been hurt badly is anybody can sell. You can sell my stuff on Amazon. All you have to do is create an account, have a tax ID, and then put the stuff up there. And you may not care about what you make. You may be like, well, I want to make this a few bucks a bottle.
Because it's not even my product. Like passive, if I make 10 and people buy it, I'll ship it and call it a day.
And you can have Amazon fulfill it. So you could say, hey, Aaron, I want a pallet of Total War, which is our biggest product, right? Our pre-workout. And you could buy that, but you could tell me, I don't want to ship it to me. Ship it to this address, this forward address. And they'll ship it to Amazon. They'll hold it there for you. You don't even see it. They'll hold it there for you, and they'll ship it out as it's sold, and you'll get money back in your account. So it's totally passive. So if you make $3 or $4 a bottle, that's fantastic. Yeah. So maybe in a month you make $5,000. You didn't even do anything. You just sit at home.
Because you did all the marketing. Yeah, people went and they just bought it because it's cheaper.
Right. Literally, they do literally go. So what happens is you have all these people cutting the prices because they just want to move units. And so what we focus a lot of time and attention on is making sure that we know who sells on Amazon. We know who is buying in general and what their intentions are. We have people sign agreements that they won't break MAP and sign agreements they won't sell on Amazon or eBay. And then we monitor it. It sucks. So it sucks to spend time doing that. And calling people who lie. And you'll be like, hey, are you selling on Amazon? I'll be like, no. Like, well, it says, we track this down. It says it's you. I'm like, okay, well, yeah. like, why are you selling it so cheap? I don't know. Like, can you lower it, please? Or we're going to have to cut you off. And they'll be like, okay. And they'll lower it. Raise it back up to the right price. 2 weeks later, you gotta call them again. Like, what are you doing, man?
Which is like,
oh, well, somebody else lowered it, so I was just lowering it to compete with the other guy. And then you'll be like, well, can you raise it? And I'm like, well, if you ask the other guy to raise it, it just becomes
it's hard to manage, especially as more people.
And we're just a growing new company. Yeah, we've already passed the small, and we're probably into the lower middle-sized company in terms of revenue and stuff. But a big company like BPI, if they had to deal with this, if they didn't get it gated or have a relationship with Amazon, man, it could be a whole department just calling these idiots and being like, hey man, why'd you do this? Or cutting people off, which is also sucks, because then it sucks to tell somebody, no, I can't take your money,
Right. So you told me last time, and I want to kind of end on this segment, you told me last time that as your company gets bigger in the supplement space, people start noticing you. And then the lawsuits start coming in. Like people are like, wait a minute, here's nobody, now he's doing that. So this blend and this, and I'm going to reverse engineer it, look at it, and this looks like this. That's what we talked about last interview. Knowing that, and how does Redcon One protect itself? Like knowing that, since you've done it the first time and you're like, hey, the first time was a surprise, like all of a sudden these things are coming out of nowhere. Sure. How do you kind of know how to navigate the playing field now that you protect yourself from repeating the same kind of fiasco?
Well, I've come a long way in my life. We have my wife, Darielle, we have 2 sons, Asher and Aiden. We have another son on the way. I think my whole outlook on everything has changed in that, and that helps to some degree because I'm not posting the pictures of cars. I'm not showing, anything. I'm showing, I like to portray myself, which I think that I am, relatively humble guy. So I think that helps. It sounds silly that would even matter, right? But it matters because I think that if you are posting pictures of Ferraris and posting pictures of stuff like that and showing it to people, it's like to some of these guys who are watching, that's an indication like, oh, I can go get them for something, There's money out there to be had. So that's one thing. The other thing is to make sure that we do everything by the book. So you can't. There's no way to prevent a lawsuit. You can
Right,
get sued
yeah.
for
I mean,
anything.
if someone gets sued,
Yeah, you
for
can get
anything,
sued for anything, but we do the things that I know that I can do to prevent it in terms of making sure that the products are FDA compliant, that the ingredients are all kosher, right? That they're all good to go. To make sure that we follow the rules and the guidelines that were set forth that honestly very few nutritional supplement companies follow. So now I'm taking things seriously. I just went to a course, an FDA course about the responsibility of the brand in the nutritional supplement industry and doing things that other people don't do, like third-party testing, spot testing of ingredients, keeping retains of each product. So if there's anybody ever has a complaint about it, we have retains that we can test to prove that the lot's okay. I mean, it's little stuff that adds up to a lot. So because a lot of the lawsuits that are out there can be frivolous. Now, fortunately, I've never had anything where somebody says they get hurt by my product. But there's things that you can do. So if that happens, you can show that the product's okay. And those are things that most people don't do that I'm trying to do. But ultimately, like you said, the more visible you are, like we talked about, you talked to the guys at Quest and Andy at First Form and a lot of other supplement company owners. It's just part of doing business, unfortunately. Lawsuits are part of it. And so I'm just doing the things that I can to prepare the business to be bulletproof as best as I can.
Right. Yeah, I understand. And so one last piece of advice you have for people who perhaps are going through a hard partnership time and are thinking of starting over, any last words for those guys in terms of how to bounce back?
Sure. I think that in life, when you have a hard time, because everybody, no matter who you are, has hard times. And I think that it's truly up to you how you handle the situation and how you bounce back from it. I could very easily have taken the last year, we had the partnership dispute. I had all the breakdown and the drama related to that. My father passed away, who I'm very close to. A whole slew of bad things happened to me. And I very easily could have put my head in the sand and said I'm going to spend the next year on the beach. And I could have wallowed in it and been depressed. And instead, I used that motivation as motivation for myself to prove that I could do it again, to give myself the motivation to spend the time focusing on positive stuff. Because ultimately, it's all your fault. Everything, how you react is your fault. The things that happen, how you react to them is up to you. It's all, if you own it all, and I try to own everything, the good stuff and the bad stuff, I could have handled things differently and maybe it would change it. But I take it all on me, and then I react by looking at the sunny side of how I could react. I think that it's up to you to deal with it in a constructive way instead of a destructive way. And it takes a conscious decision, and you may have to remind yourself over and over again, but it is possible.
Well, very, very well said. I wish you luck, my friend, for the next years to come. I don't think you need any luck. You're already crushing it.
Thank you.
Always good seeing you.
Yeah, good seeing you too, buddy.
For all of you guys that are watching, just keep in mind that no matter what happens to you in business, no matter the ups and downs, there's always a way out, and you are ultimately your own way out. You just have to figure out how to use yourself and all of the years of experiences you've acquired through the failures, the successes, to be able to recover in a faster and better way. No different than if you've had surgery or you've been injured. It's the exact same thing. So again, thank you to Aaron Singerman for joining us today on this other episode of Secret Entourage Academy. And for all of you, I hope you've learned something, and we'll catch you guys next time.